everybody. Welcome to your favorite Spider-Man Bronze Age podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I'm your co-host, Mike L., and as always, I'm joined by...
Joshua Mervell. And today we're going to be reading some Spider-Man comics from March of 1984.
That's right, and we have a recurring guest host in the form of G.I. Jolie.
Oh, hello, everybody.
That's right. And G.I. Jolie has been working hard behind the scenes, booking some really interesting guests coming up. So stay tuned because we've got some really cool people that you might actually be more familiar with than you are familiar with us, believe it or not. I mean, not quite the level of Tom Holland or Tobey Maguire, but, you know, more famous than we are.
Andrew Garfield?
Not quite.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I know. If you know, you got to shoot for the moon, right?
Yeah.
That's Andrew Garfield. But anyway, okay. So this week we are reviewing Amazing Spider-Man 250, which is the middle part of the Hobgoblin trilogy, as it was called at the time. And I must say, it's kind of cool because, as everyone knows, comic books like to celebrate any numbered comic divisible by 100, also by 50, and sometimes when they're really pushing it, they'll celebrate comics divisible by 25, which is kind of lame, but whatever. So on the cover of this issue, they've actually got a little blurb. It says "Special Normal Size 250th Issue." So I thought that was really cool.
I also love that they say normal sized. It's
right.
The special normal size 250th issue.
I love it.
Don't worry, but we're making a big deal out of it. And just in case you weren't familiar with the Hobgoblin, he's evil because this comic is great. You should steal it.
Yeah.
Just telling you in the corner.
Awesome.
It's the best.
Behold the face of death. Behold Hobgoblin. We got to talk about this cover quickly. I think it's amazing. It's John Romita Jr. inked by Klaus Janson. Josh, what do you think of this cover?
It's so fun.
Right.
It's really, really great. Yeah.
Yep. G.I. Jolie?
Yeah. I think we talked about Klaus Janson before, that like the art wasn't as it was painterly, but it wasn't as and stylistic.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't really work inside the comic. It really works on a cover, like
yes.
a lot. Mm-hmm. Like look at those flames. Look at them.
Right. That's the thing is there are some examples in here where, because he doesn't really know anatomy, he kind of flattens out the figure a little bit and makes it a little bit wonky. But he is so good at texture and like the spotting the blacks, and like, you know, we talked about just the fire and everything. It just looks amazing. Like even if he didn't ink this, it would have been a good cover. But he really makes it pop, and so do the colors, right? The colors make it pop too.
I think the heavy inking actually really works here too, because you have the fire behind them, so they're like
right.
backlit, so that they should be in heavy shadow. So that like sketchiness really kind of adds to the intensity of what's going on.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, I really do like the cover.
Yeah, and if this was recolored, or if it wasn't, the colorist really kind of knew what they were doing. Even if it was still them too, like everything works so well together.
Right. We should point out the colorist in this issue inside is, I don't know colorist, I'm sorry, but this is C. Shiel, who I've never heard of, but we should just give them credit because I'm assuming they also did the cover. But anyway, so we jump into this issue, picking up where we left off last time. If everyone remembers, we had a really cool scene where they gathered together all the heads of the underworld in New York, and basically Hobgoblin was threatening them. And so now we're kind of picking up where we left off. Spidey leaves the scene of not the crime, but he leaves the scene. He was inside this private club with all these like mafioso type people, but he was disguised as Spider-Man, but he came in originally as Peter Parker, but he wasn't quite they didn't let him in the door. So now he's sneaking back out to change to Peter Parker to go and rendezvous with J. Jonah Jameson. And as well as Harry Osborn. So he kind of goes back in and they're talking, and then him and Harry go for a coffee and they're trying to figure out what's going on and comparing notes and stuff like that. And then we cut over to the Hobgoblin, who has right away found Spider-Man's spider tracer. Now, for those that don't know, usually Spider-Man uses his spider sense to detect the spider tracer, but Hobgoblin has used some type of gas that has I thought it was only when Hobgoblin was around, but I guess it's kind of permanently got rid of Spider-Man's spider sense, so he can't trace
it's kind of
these
like
spiders.
damaged his nerves somehow.
Right. And so Hobgoblin finds it, and so he's like, you know, ha ha ha, I'm onto him, whatever. And so basically, we cut back and to Spider-Man sneaking into his apartment. We have like a funny scene with his landlady, you know, sneaking into his what's it called, this skylight above his bathroom, and he can't quite get in. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to take off. And wait, sorry, did I miss something? Did he? No, his spider sense doesn't go off here, does it?
Yeah, it like weirdly goes off, and it hit his like. I
Right.
think it was in this issue. It like weirdly comes back for a minute, and it's like super strong, and it like causes him almost to fall.
Right.
He catches himself, and he thinks maybe he's getting it back, but it's kind of slow.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
It
then
isn't
he's
until later though, because he's sort of decided that he's going to because in the last issue, Kingpin took his spider tracer and threw it and attached it to the Hobgoblin, and now he knows that he needs to somehow track the Hobgoblin. So, but he knows he can't do it without his spider sense. So instead, he's like, well, I'll just track down every one of those billionaires that was in that room.
Right.
To see what, like, yeah, he's like getting into like some Batman style detective work this time.
Right. Yeah. So first he goes to kind of shake down this guy named George Vandergill or Vandergill. Doesn't really get anywhere with him. The guy tries to act tough, but it's clear at the end of the scene that he's actually scared because he's going to like leave the country. Then the very next scene, he tries to shake down a certain Roderick Kingsley, who longtime Spidey fans will know is actually the Hobgoblin. But we don't know this, and we didn't find that out until years later, which we'll talk about in future episodes. But, oh, and by the way, I want to point out, Josh, I think it was last week, or that you or someone else mentioned that Roderick Kingsley's twin was not introduced until years later, right? That's kind of like a fix.
Right.
But here, he says, of all times for my brother to be out of town.
If I ever needed him. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, so clearly, even maybe he wasn't introduced yet, but Roger Stern already had him in mind.
Interesting.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just like,
I didn't even think about that.
It's a really weirdly placed thought.
Right.
Because up until now, I don't know if we knew anything about if anybody knew anything about his brother, and why would he be thinking about his brother? It's one of those things where, like, you look back at when you go back and read like we are right now, and you notice that there's little clues being dropped everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, and the only other place I've ever seen that is like in Buffy.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, go on.
So Spidey uses his spider, whatever this is called, signal light, which I wish they put in the movies because they never used it in the movies. But anyway, and then Roderick Kingsley is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think they actually. It's weird. They put it in Civil War.
Really?
The, like post-credit scene, but then he never uses it as like a thing.
Right.
Like when he, I think. One of the post-credit scene or mid-credit scene, I think that you find out that Tony gave him the suit. So when we see him back at his house again, he like picks it up and it lights up and it shines on the ceiling.
Right. Okay.
And then so I thought that they were going to use, but like they never actually use it. But I guess we also don't really see him like fighting like street level crimes in the movies. So
right.
But,
Anyway, so it's funny because Roderick Kingsley is really scared, but I can only assume that he's acting because he is the Hobgoblin, right?
Right.
So then, they show a little montage of him shaking down other people, like a guy in a shower. He pops in through someone's, what's that called, fireplace. So that's kind of cool. But then, this is the moment where his spider sense, then all of a sudden, it just goes off so wildly that he almost like falls to the ground, like as he's swinging. So that's kind of cool, but we don't know what's going on. Then we cut over to J. Jonah Jameson, and he's writing up his confession for basically admitting that he funded the Scorpion suit all the way back in like an early issue of Spider-Man, like number 9 or something. And so him and Spidey have this little discussion, and Spider-Man basically says to him that, don't worry about this. You don't have to confess. I'm going to take care of this. Forget about the martyr bit, Jameson. I'll find the Hobgoblin creep. I don't know how, but I will, and I'll even save your job. If that doesn't prove I'm crazy, nothing will. And then when this is all over, maybe the two of us outlaws can come to terms. So it's Hobgoblin that's blackmailing him, and so that's why J. Jonah Jameson is writing this confession. So then we get a really cool, classic Roger Stern scene where Peter Parker digs out this his original mechanical spider tracer thingy that he had way back in Amazing Spider-Man number 11. And again, I love this stuff because there are writers like what's his name? I can't remember. Paul Jenkins, who has flat out said he does not read. He doesn't even bother reading the guy who's writing the comic like in the months leading up to when he takes over. Right. And now we've got Roger Stern who's using continuity to build on, and you don't have to read that old story, but it's just nice because if you had read Spider-Man since number 11, you're like, oh, they're bringing back the Spider Tracer. Great, right? So he digs it up and he's like, I don't even know if this is going to work, blah, blah, blah. Then we cut over to Hobgoblin, with a microscope looking at the Spider Tracer. But then sure enough, Spidey tracks him down because it worked, right? And then we get another Hobgoblin Spidey fight scene. And of course, it's awesome. Back and forth. It goes on for a couple pages. It's good stuff as usual. It's well orchestrated by Stern and Romita. And then basically, it's a cool scene because then Spider-Man accidentally, I don't know if he causes it, but there's a fire that started, and all of the Green Goblin's journals are on this table. And then Hobgoblin's expression changes. No, not the journals. And Spider-Man's like, the journals? He's like, the cannon set them afire, and I had many copies that blast you. Hey, don't throw that. And then boom, causes a huge explosion, and the whole warehouse goes up. And then we cut over to...
Right, actually, I think it was Hobgoblin's own, security cannons that start firing at Spider-Man, and he jumps out of the way. Right. So I kind of like that because it's kind of reminiscent of Green Goblin,
right?
Where he gets killed by his own
back in number 122 weapon, or whatever. Right? So, good
or
point.
By his own glider, I guess. Yeah.
So then, I love this following sequence. We cut to a reaction shot of J. Jonah Jameson on the other side of the city. We see the smoke coming up from the explosion. His secretary comes in, and he's like, tell Joe Robertson there's some sort of fire in the warehouse district. Have him send a reporter over there right away. Yes, sir. Is that all? No. Take this down to composing. Have them set it for page 1. So it shows that he's decided he's going to print his confession. And then the very last panel is just a silhouette of him standing at the window looking at the smoke billowing out of the warehouse. Oh, what a great ending, eh? I love this issue. I read it as a kid. It still holds up. I love it. Josh, what do you think?
It's fantastic. I really like Spider-Man having to really, like Jolie was saying, be a detective because of something that a villain has done to him. Hobgoblin has taken one of his senses away, so he's got to use his wits to outsmart him, and they're kind of on the same level now with that, Hobgoblin and Spider-Man. But the interaction with Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson is so fun. And I think my favorite interaction, my favorite pieces of writing in all of the comics we've read so far on this podcast. It's so good. It's such a fun back and forth. They hate each other and they're bitter enemies, but they need each other as well. J. Jonah Jameson needs Spider-Man to continue to write stories about him, and not only that, but to keep this story about the Scorpion coming out, and Spider-Man needs him because Peter Parker needs a job. It's just such a fun dynamic, and even though that they're against each other, they need that to work. It's just so fun.
He knows that he needs or he knows that he should just leave well enough alone. J. Jonah Jameson is trying to write his confession, but he takes it. He takes it and he goes, no, you don't need to do this because I will take care of it, and then you can get off my freaking spider back.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. He uses it as leverage to get him off his back. He's like, well, if I protect you, then you don't have to spill your secrets.
Right.
So I'm just gonna go and do it. Like, then he just does it anyway. Because he hates Spider-Man.
Right.
And
it's so good.
And the thing is, you know, I think it was really a great point that Phil made last week where he was talking about how it seemed like Marvel Team Up was aimed at a younger audience. And I remember when even reading this issue as a kid, I remember feeling like I feel like it felt more adult. It wasn't quite Alan Moore Watchmen, but especially this ending, just the way this thing ended, I just felt like it was just so realistic, and combined with the artwork, it was just so gritty, you know, and just a great issue.
There were, I think that in the last episode, I think this was a comment that was made in the last episode as well, was that like there's a lot of narration in the dialogue of what characters are doing. And it happens here still, but to a different degree, like an almost more acceptable degree. Excuse me. So yeah, to a more acceptable degree. And it works because Spider-Man is more or less trying to describe to you his feelings, so that you kind of like get underneath his costume too, so you know where he is. Like, so you feel right now he feels just as human as you. The only difference between me and you, because he's been sort of, you know, his spider sense is gone, is that like he can shoot webs. That's it. Otherwise he's just human. The whole time I was reading the page, which is like Digital 13, the whole time I was reading that page, I was like, and he was complaining about, it's as if your own heartbeat is denied you. It's like, buddy, you're still human. Use your brain. Like, you're a genius level scientist. Use your brains. And then when he goes into his closet and gets the tracker, and I was like, buddy, you knew you had this tracker all along? What the heck are you doing? Like... Anyway, like at first it bothered me, but I didn't realize it was like a long forgotten piece of technology that like his spider trackers had adapted or evolved over enough time that he didn't need to use this like very analog tracker anymore, or the receiver I should say. But I mean, doesn't everybody need like a plan B?
It just reminds me of like, when I have a freaking old, external hard drive that has a weird USB connection that doesn't exist anymore, and I have to dig through my bins of old wires. That's what it reminded me of. But anyway, Josh, what were you going to say?
Well, I think the thing too is that like that tracker is not hooked up to the spider trackers he's currently using. Yeah. So he had to like adapt that tool to what he's doing now. So he wouldn't have thought about it. It's not like I have this universal remote control that I forgot about, or like this MacGuffin tool that'll help me find Hobgoblin. But it's like this thing that he's got to, this old tool that he can now upgrade or try to like. Fix to adapt to this new problem.
Yeah, and he's like, here's where I test my science wits. And then the fact that, okay, let's just talk about the fact that the Hobgoblin is looking at the spider tracker under a microscope, which means, like, is this like nanotech? Like, is Peter Parker creating nanotechnology? Like, this spider tracker isn't just something he soldered in his bedroom. You know what I mean? I mean, it is, but that's how smart he is. Yeah. Of like a inventor, little genius. Peter Parker is. He made something so small that you have to look at it under a microscope. Well, he's talking about it right here. Like he's just as gifted as Norman.
It's also worth noting that if you look at a lot of Marvel's characters, right? You've got Reed Richards, you've got Bruce Banner, Henry Pym, Tony Stark. They're all scientific geniuses, and I think that's a running theme in all of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko's creations, right? Which I think is cool because they were Stan Lee is an astute person, and I mean, that's the going right back to Superman. These characters were created by. They were created by, well, to use Marshall Spalchine's terminology, they were created by nerds. They weren't created by jocks, right? Mm-hmm. And so, of course, they're going to champion being well-read and well-studied, right? So I think that's really cool. But anyway.
I think it makes them, like, back to what we were talking about last episode with, like, how Marvel heroes feel more grounded in reality. I think that really helps, where DC feels like the heroes feel more like gods.
Right.
Like giving them that like superhuman ability of like their wit and kind of describing that as being like gifted in the science and just being extremely smart. I think it's so fun, and like again, it just adds that, another level of real world story that is like built into the characters that just makes them feel real.
Right. And also I want to point out a pet peeve of mine, which is the way Batman has been elevated to like a Chuck Norris meme level of invincibility in the past like 20 years. In the comics, I mean. And I remember there was a Justice League story where they were talking about some kind of new, I don't know what, it was a new jet or something that they had. And they were talking about it was a combination of different technologies. And they're like, oh, we got this technology from Aquaman, this Atlantean technology. We got this Martian technology, for the drive system for Martian Manhunter. And we got Kryptonian, and we got Themyscirian. And then we got some really scary stuff from Bruce, and I'm thinking, really, Bruce Wayne can produce better technology than Paradise Island, Atlantis, Mars, Krypton, what else? Thanagar? You know what I mean? Come on. And I know that Bruce is supposed to know everything, but come on. Like, really? He's not established as a scientist. So, anyway, it just pisses me off.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Bruce Banner knows magic?
Yeah, come on. Anyway, just a pet peeve of mine. But anyway, again, we could talk about this comic for an hour, but unfortunately we have two other comics to talk about. So obviously I recommend this issue. G.I. Jolie, do you recommend it?
Absolutely not. Yes, I do. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead. Read it.
Josh?
Yeah, I would go out of my way to recommend this issue.
Yeah.
Like it's very good. Yeah.
Stop his car in a four-way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just hand out copies.
Okay, next time you get into a road rage incident, just hold up a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 250 and tell the guy to read it and calm the heck down.
I'll leave it under somebody's windshield wiper next time I see they're double parked in a parking lot.
There you go.
It's okay, everybody. It's normal size.
Yeah, don't worry.
Anyway. Okay, so on to a piece of shit. Okay, Marvel Team Up. And this is Josh's turn. Tell us what this one's about, Josh.
So we have Marvel Team Up issue 139 with Spider-Man and Nick Fury. I had high hopes for this one. I really did. I don't know why.
Because you're easily fooled.
I was kind of surprised with how the last few issues of Marvel Team Up had been readable. So I was like, maybe this one won't be so bad. And like Spider-Man and Nick Fury, they seem like they would, be a good duo to put together in a story. And no. This one's not so great.
No.
So we start this issue off with this like weird splash page that is kind of like a flash forward.
Yeah.
It's almost like another comic book cover.
Oh, yeah.
In a weird way. Like we see Spider-Man fighting with what's his name? Not Titanium. What's his name?
Dreadnought?
Dreadnought, yeah.
That's it.
So we see him fight like. Sorry, what's that?
He calls him Forkhead a couple times.
Forkhead, yeah, because he's got the weird like magnet on his head. I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't like those lame nicknames. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, it's weird. We get this, and it's kind of like introducing them almost like a boxing match. Like, he towers 8 feet tall. He's 2,200 pounds. And then, there's a bubble above Spider-Man. He's a mere 5'10", 165 pounds, like introducing them both. And then, there's the title of the story. Everybody loves somebody sometime. So Spider-Man is late for this shoot that he's got to do for the Daily Bugle. So he swings in and he's tasked to take pictures of this actress named Kate Winston. She's come to New York to promote her new and put on a new show. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure if she's in a musical or if this is like just a concert she's throwing, but it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So as Spidey's taking pictures, we see Forkhead crash through the wall, and he's there to kidnap her. And Spider-Man, Peter Parker quickly changes into Spider-Man. I have no idea how he's done this so fast. He's
he
like
leaves the room.
He really does. But unfortunately, Dreadnought is able to cut the Peter's spider web, and capture Kate Winston and get away. And he does throw a tracker on Dreadnought, and I don't know. I guess it's a little confusing when this takes place because he has the
Right.
the
He already has
tracker.
Which is good for continuity. It shows they're paying attention, but you're right. It also seems like is it the next day? Is this after what's happening with Hobgoblin? Anyways, I don't think it's really important because the story doesn't matter. No, because the story's not important.
So then we see Dum Dum Dugan driving Nick Fury home from I don't know where. Work, I guess. He's driving Nick Fury back to his apartment. They go in for a couple of cigars and some drinks, and who's there waiting for him at the door but their old pal Dino Manelli from he's a former Howling Commando, and he's now a singer.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
It's really wild. So he sits down and he talks to Nick Fury and Dum Dum Dugan and explains that he needs their help. And we jump to this flashback, and he tells his whole sob story about how he used to be a singer in these casinos. And he found this one casino in Vegas that wasn't run by the Magia, which is Marvel Comics version of the Mafia. And then it was bought out by Marcus Cressetti, who's a member of the Magia. So Dino quits working for them, and he built his own casino with the help of his new secret fiancée, who turns out to be Kate Winston. And they're actually set to be married today, right after the show in New York. And she just happens to get kidnapped, or so we think. And we also know that Marcus Cressetti wants revenge, so he's asking Nick Fury to help get Kate Winston back and stop Marcus Cressetti from whatever his evil plans are. Nick Fury pretty much says, "Nah, I'm not helping you. This isn't S.H.I.E.L.D.'s problem. We don't deal with shit like this." Dino storms out, and Nick Fury's like, "I just wanted him out of here. He's gonna get in the way. Dum Dum, you stay here. I'm gonna go do this by myself." And then we cut to we cut to Nick Fury, and he's at the apartment building of one of the lawyers who works for the Magia, and he uses this chip that he shoots from this gun to listen in on his conversation to figure out where their hideout is. Which is really kind of actually a clever, fun scene. Then we cut over to J. Jonah Jameson and Peter Parker. JJ is yelling at him for not taking pictures of
Never seen that before.
Kate Winston's. Sorry, was that?
I said never seen that before, but anyway, yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's just ridiculous.
yeah. There's just so much that happens. It's like, everything is just crammed into this book.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Spider-Man swings off. Then we catch up with Nick Fury. He's talking to Dum Dum Dugan, saying, "I'm at the docks. I'm going in and gonna go try to get Kate Winston back." And then this really weird moment happens that is just never talked about or brought up again. But we see Dum Dum Dugan talking to Nick Fury, and once he ends the call, somebody taps on his shoulder, and Dum Dum Dugan turns around and says, "You, not you."
Yeah.
And then that's it. Like, we don't see Dum Dum Dugan again. We never figure out who is there with Dum Dum Dugan. I'm not sure if this is, like, connecting into, like, a Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic.
I don't even know if
story
there
is going to
was
be
one
continued later.
at this time. I don't know.
Yeah. I actually went to next issue to see if Dum Dum Dugan is going to be back in Marvel Team Up, and he's not. So it's not even like this is a setup for next week's issue. Maybe it is setting up a whole nother comic
Oh, I don't know.
story, but this never comes up again. I thought that Dum Dum Dugan was going to be kidnapped, and it was going to be another person they were going to have to save, but no. So, anyways, Nick Fury starts fighting Dreadnought, and Spider-Man ends up swinging by and coming in and helping. Nick Fury says, "Don't worry about me. I have this covered. You go save Kate Winston, and I'll take care of this giant fucking robot." Immediately just gets taken down. Like, Nick Fury is not the one with superpowers. He's like, "Don't worry, I got this." The robot crashes through some boxes, knocks him on the head, and he just, like, electrocutes Nick Fury. So Spider-Man drops into the room where Kate is being held, and she smashes him over the head with a bottle, and Spider-Man wakes up, and him and Nick Fury are being tied up and held captive, and it turns out that Kate Winston has been working with the Magia and Marcus Cressetti to frame Dino and take all of his money. Dino ends up running in, and it's enough of a distraction where Spider-Man is able to break the chains that are binding him, and they start fighting the Magia and this giant robot again. Nick Fury says, "I have this tool that will just destroy the Dreadnought," so just it's like this explosive collar. I don't know why this collar needs to be attached to Dreadnought for it to explode, because Nick Fury has to shoot it anyways. So it's just an explosive, really. So Spider-Man is able to attach this to Dreadnought's face. Nick Fury shoots him, and they destroy the robot. And Nick Fury, like, while Spider-Man is tackling and wrestling with this robot, Nick Fury was able to take out the rest of the Magia. So once all the bad guys have been defeated, Nick Fury talks about how Kate is going to be going to jail, and Dino is still kind of hurt and still loves Kate. And Spider-Man swings away at the end. Nothing really matters. The story sucked.
Yep.
It's like they crammed reading it was like watching all three Lord of the Rings movies in like 24 pages of a comic book.
Yep.
It's just so much happened, and
Yeah.
half of it just didn't matter.
Would you believe he got the shots he needed? Like in the second last panel. Would you believe Dino quotes Shakespeare? Like,
sorry, that was horrible.
What actual F is happening here?
You know,
Like, when you lay
I
I was almost convinced while you were laying it all out that the story actually makes sense, which it does and it doesn't.
I just want to point out
not
that scene, that specific scene. You know, Nick Fury's like, you better be glad Dino's only wounded, Crucetti. Otherwise, why, Dino? Why did you do it? I couldn't let them kill you. I really love you, Julie. I once took a drama class and they taught us quotes from Shakespeare. Went something like this. Why couldn't he just say the line? Why does he have to explain where he learned it? And what?
Yeah.
Are you saying they didn't teach you Shakespeare? They taught you quotes from Shakespeare? You know, like it's like we have a case here, and I don't want to pick on. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to pick on Cary Burkett because I think I've read stuff by him that's fairly decent, but this is just a mess of just junk thrown in. Like it's all garbage. I'm sorry, it's all garbage.
My favorite bit of writing is Nick Fury and Dum Dum Dugan. They run into their old war buddy who used to be part of the Howling Commandos. They were in the trenches together. They're brothers. Says, and you know, Dum Dum says, Dino Manelli, is that you? And he goes, you got it, ex-member of the famous Howling Commando Squad and veteran star of TV and the silver screen.
Yeah,
it's just like. You don't need to introduce yourself to these guys. They know who you are. Like, it's just such weird, like...
bad.
Awful writing. It's like... they're writing for the audience and not the story.
Right.
Yeah, and,
right?
And it's
like...
And oh, God.
It's almost written as, like, a soap opera. Where, like, everything is, like, so blatant and towards the camera.
Yeah, you're right.
So to
you're
speak.
Right.
Like, it's just... so in your face, things just like happen in text rather than happening in real life, like Jolie was saying with the ending, like at least he got some picture, like it's like what we saw him take a, like it just doesn't make sense. It's like they didn't know how to end it. Like, oh crap, we introduced this J. Jonah Jameson subplot, we gotta have a panel in here where he's taking a picture. Oh yeah, shove that in here. Oh, you know, we saw him with Dum Dum Dugan earlier, so we got to have him call back and talk to Dum Dum Dugan and introduce this other story that we'll never come back to. And,
right.
It just so much, like even describing this is a special collar that Shield has developed to stop Dreadnought before. I just so happen to have it in my pocket, and even though I didn't even know Dreadnought was here, you know, I just happen to have this specific tool for this specific bad guy from years back.
Right.
And it's just an explosive. Like it doesn't actually. It's not like it deactivates him. It's just a dog collar that's strapped with explosives that he still has to shoot with a gun to explode. Like it's just I don't know. It's just so much happens and things are just crammed into the story. Like it really does feel like it would be a better 2-part story.
Yeah,
like
it's really strange. Yeah, honestly, sorry if you had more to say about that.
No, I'm just like it's an interesting idea. Like if you just think about like you know, one of the old Howling Commandos comes back and is talking to Nick Fury about a personal problem, and Spider-Man happens to be there when this problem starts. Like that's a good way to bring these characters together. And the fact that the person that we're trying to save ends up being the bad guy, and it's like a love interest actress that you wouldn't expect to turn. Like it's kind of a fun premise, but just it's really the execution where it falls, because it's just a jumbled mess. Right. Sorry, Jolie, though.
No, it's okay. I just was really excited because they started off calling this book Everybody Loves Somebody Sometime. And I was like, oh, that's a Dean Martin song. Cool. So I thought that there'd be some tie. And then when I saw that, like, this Winston woman was like a singing movie star, I was like, oh, yep, they're going to absolutely... Maybe like, it's going to be like an entertainment style caper that involves like pop culture versions, like their own Marvel versions of pop culture figures. Like, so in my mind, Dino is Dean Martin.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. And this Kate Winston, I don't know who she is. Like, I started looking into like who he's been related or tied to, but that never pays off.
No.
Just like the Dum Dum Dugan thing never pays off. Like, there's parts where you're like, okay, they're screwed. Dino just effed up, and now he's like, he's somebody that you could have counted on based on like to save them because he loves this woman so much. Now he's tied up. All of our heroes are tied up. Our lover is tied up. Dum Dum Dugan is out there somewhere behind some crates. But he never shows up. Like, there's a lot of story and no payoff.
Right.
And it's like, there's a robot, but it's not good.
I just don't
good at all.
No, and I just don't understand, if you're gonna do a fill-in, which is basically this is a fill-in, why don't you just keep it simple? You know, like, why do you have to? Oh, I don't know, like, throw in all these subplots that go nowhere, and just, I don't know, it could have just been so much simpler. You know?
Yep. Take out a couple characters. Josh is already like done talking.
No, like, I mean,
even himself. Yeah.
Even if you go back to what's it called, the kid who collects Spider-Man, that is a perfect fill-in, and it could have been expanded to a full issue. Like, to me, if you're gonna do a fill-in story, do something like that, where you just have like character moments instead of this, right?
Right, or just like, don't make it this like big blockbuster. Like, they're trying to make each issue its own like fantastic story, and there's not enough time for build up or to develop new characters that you're going to introduce to have it pay off by the end of the book.
Good point. Yep.
Like, they have to go and they have to, like, a whole page is dedicated to flashback with Dino, and then but before that we also introduce Kate Winston, and we talk about her backstory and how there's rumors that she's secretly married to a singer. It's like, why make it a secret? Even like it being a secret doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't add anything to the story. So so why not just introduce Dino and Kate at the same time in that beginning? And you don't have to introduce Dino again later on when he goes to Nick Fury. Like, there's just so much happening, and it's all spread out and everywhere. And it, like, I don't know. I just feel like a lot could be like cut back, and you know, why have Dum Dum in the story at all?
Yep, you're right.
Like, it's just more interactions now that Nick Fury's talking to another person that it doesn't, end up mattering at the end of the day in this issue. Like, cut all of that and have him show up at his apartment building. Right. Like, I don't know. There's just so much that is just there. That, it's just I think they tried too hard to make this an epic story.
Yep. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I think it's actually surprisingly one of the worst Marvel team-ups we've read, I think. Or at least one of the most disorganized.
Yeah, I think it's just the most disappointing because it has a lot of potential, I think.
Right. Yeah, like you said, the ideas are okay. It's just, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, it has the bones of something that I would read, but, like, it needed 22 more pages.
Well, it also needed the pages that were there to be better, I think, right? Because I don't know if I'd want to read 22 pages.
Yeah. Or just split it into two separate books. Like, I don't know. You want Dum Dum Dugan in there. You're obviously setting up some story with him. So have the next issue be Spider-Man and Dum Dum Dugan. Or, like, I don't know. Like, it's just... it just needs to be fleshed out a lot better, and this story is really kind of a major letdown, and I did not have fun really at any moment reading this. I don't think there was any like moment in the story where I was like excited to read more or see what was happening.
No, and also we haven't even touched on the art, which I thought was so just mediocre. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's terrible to the point that it's not even worth talking about.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, like if you were to look at every panel, every page, all the characters are the exact same size. Like scan through and it's like mid shot, mid shot, mid shot, mid shot. There is no variety of angles or the size of the characters. There's no the storytelling's there. I'm not going to criticize that, but it's just so dull. Like, and it's not even a matter of talent. It's like, why would you choose such dull angles and dull everything, composition, you know? Anyway, yeah, there's not really much else to say about this. This is clearly a fill-in. However, I did look ahead, and apparently Cary Burkett does write a few more issues coming up soon. So we've got at least a handful more stories from this guy.
We got 21 more weeks of this.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, are you talking about Marvel Team Up?
Yeah.
No, 11. What are you talking about? It's canceled at 150. So only 10 more to go. Or 11.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought it went to 160.
No.
Oh.
Let's celebrate
right.
with whiskey when that happens.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. We got to have a special episode.
Yeah, no more Marvel Team Up. Okay, so I guess that wraps it up. I do not recommend this issue. If you're reading Marvel Team Up, just skip it. Josh, what do you think?
No.
Skip it. Okay, Jolie.
Skip. Get out of here.
Ugh.
3 no's. It's a clean sweep. Let's move on.
Oh, that's bad. Okay,
I don't ever want to think about it again.
Right. So on to the next one, which is Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, number 88. G.I. Jolie, do you want to tell us about this one?
Sure. Oh, yeah. So we get like another page at the start where it's kind of like a flash forward, flash back. I don't know. But it shows you guards on Rikers Island at a correctional facility. Let's see here. And they're protecting somebody named the Cobra.
Right.
And the Cobra is... I honestly don't know if the Cobra is working with Mr. Hyde or hiding from Mr. Hyde. But that person, that bad person, is being pursued by another bad person called Mr. Hyde, who's like this giant, stocky, sort of like Frankenstein-y.
Yeah.
So he kind of like busts into Rikers to try to get him, to try to get the Cobra, but the Cobra is taken out of Rikers via helicopter to try to protect him. I honestly, this is probably the weirdest, most confusing part. But the Hyde finally gets him and throws him into the water, but into the rocky part that you see Jean-Claude Van Damme avoid. But he's like, well, no, Cobra's fine because he's a snake. And snakes are fine when you throw them into the water surrounded by rocks. Like, I don't get the logic that Mr. Hyde is working with, but it works.
So we actually saw these two working together in a previous Spectacular Spider-Man.
Well, that explains it.
Right.
Yeah, so we have seen these two fools work together before. And,
no, it was Amazing Spider-Man. Just for the record, it was amazing.
Oh, it was amazing, right? And Cobra, I think, backstabbed Mr. Hyde. So like they were working together, and now they're enemies because they kind of screwed each other over, I think. Mm-hmm. So that's why Mr. Hyde is after Cobra, because he's still bitter about their last team up.
Last team up. I think
Okay.
it's funny.
Yeah, it was not somehow. The helicopter that Cobra's making his getaway in crashes into Rikers and sets the whole place ablaze. So they both got to get out of there. Mm-hmm. He jumps into the water, he makes it. Moving on. This is where we leave off with our like Black Canary Spider-Man / Peter Parker story, where she's like, you could just come to my apartment where I like it more, and just don't take your costume off because I'm clearly uncomfortable with the idea that you're Peter Parker. And Peter's still like kind of kept up at night thinking about these things. Thinking about the duality of I'm finally committed to somebody. This is fine. everything that's happening between us is totally fine. There's actually one point in the dialogue where he says something that contradicts what is actually happening. Here, when on digital page 10, where he's like, she doesn't care who I am under the mask, meaning she doesn't care that I'm Peter Parker. No, she absolutely cares that you're Peter Parker. I don't know why the editorial allowed that mistake to run through on the Peter Parker thought dialogue, but anyway, he's still plagued by the whole idea that Peter Parker, she doesn't want a life with Peter Parker. She wants her life to be with Spider-Man.
I think it's just because they don't know either. Because it's just so inconsistent in all of these stories, whether if she cares about his secret identity or not.
Yeah, and again, do you know what? Just in case you were wondering if they cleared that up for us, they don't.
No.
So yeah. So
it's like the Pinky and the Brain quote. It's like, what's going to happen in Spectacular Spider-Man this week? The same thing that happens every week, Pinky. It's like just the same thing over and over again.
And the thing is there have been some good issues, but it's like for every good issue, there's 3 that are bad, or 3 that are just fill-in, you know? And like, just think about the heyday of this run with Ed Hannigan on art when we were raving about how it was Steve Ditko-esque and all that. And now it's just, this whole Black Cat thing has really killed it, I think, you know? So yeah, and the thing is I don't have much to say about this one. Like they kind of built up.
I wasn't done.
I was going to say, I think Jolie has more to talk
Jesus.
about.
Oh,
but I mean, like...
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Unfortunately, there's more.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, long story short, all of their paths intertwine. After Spider-Man is like, I'm going to go fling myself around the city while I, sit on these thoughts a little more. Black Cat wakes up and goes, oh, you're about to go do the favorite thing that I love you doing. Let me join you. And then she joins him. Ugh, I guess he has no backbone. And they run into Cobra and Mr. Hyde, who are just running around on the streets causing trouble. And they fight. And but Spidey's like, no, you can't fight with me. You're just an unpowered, though skilled,
right,
at fighting, like street fighting and martial arts. You're still not super powered, so there's no way you can join this fight with me. And it's because I love you that I think these things. Right. And then she uses it as like this. She's like, no, I must fight because I have to prove to him that I can hold my own. And then that's it. That's really all that happens until the end of the comic, where Cobra doesn't turn on anybody. They hate each other. The fight turns inwards, and Cobra and Hyde, instead of fighting Spidey and Black Cat, they start to fight each other, and they blow each other up. And then that's it. And then what happens at the end with these two?
So Spider-Man gets knocked out saving Black Cat, and Black Cat's like, oops, I messed up, and just dips. Like, she just leaves. She's like, Spider-Man.
I'm a liability to him. It's like, what, bitch? What are you doing?
Do you remember when he said that to you earlier?
Yeah.
Do you remember him saying this? Or maybe, do you remember, like, last issue when he said this, and then you got in the way, and you said, oh, no, I'm always just getting in the way, and then you did it again, and then said, oh, Beans, he's right, I just get in the way, and then you do it again, and then you get in the way.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see this a lot nowadays in comics, where a writer has, like, 1 or 2 good ideas, and they stretch them out over, like, 25 issues, but that's clear what's happening here. Is Bill Mantlo has taken this Black Cat thing and just run it into the ground, you know?
It's like the Groundhog Day era of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing happening every issue, and, like, it would be different if they're building up to this inevitable breakup, but
Right.
but it's the same exact story and same exact events that are happening. You're just like, filling in the blanks of, blank bad guy comes in and tries to stop Spider-Man, and Black Cat and Spider-Man team up, and Black Cat gets in the way, and then she gets upset that she could have died and Spider-Man was right. And then the next issue, it's the same thing, but with a different villain and a different, villain motivation.
Until she inevitably gets knocked down and put into the hospital, or maybe perhaps she falls in love with somebody else. I don't even know, and I don't even care at this point.
Well, and the sad thing is there's a cliffhanger, In her head, she's like, no thanks to me. As long as I possess no superpowers of my own, I'm a liability to him. I've got to change that. And then there's a little caption. How? Then it says, next month, power search. It's cataclysmic. Oh my God. Now she's what? Gonna go on. She's gonna go and search for superpowers. You know how idiotic that is? Anyway. Oh,
well,
man.
I mean, it could turn out to be fun, but somehow they're going to shoehorn Spider-Man and his guilt into that issue.
Mm-hmm.
And when we could have like a sort of Black Cat-centric issue of Spectacular Spider-Man, I don't even know why I'm wishing for something like that, we're going to get some more relationship drama that's just sad boy bullshit. Mm-hmm. And I just don't want to play in this playground anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just mud. And no one likes to be in the mud.
Right.
Yep.
Have they established whether Black Cat, concrete has or doesn't have powers yet? Because I'm almost certain we've read in an issue that she does have some sort of, feline powers where she's more agile and can jump around and still swing and
See, I don't remember that. I remember them thinking she had good luck powers, but then she said that was all just faked. So they retconned her good luck powers. So she actually doesn't have any powers.
And that happened in this story. So it's fabricated weakness of Black Cat just to have this awful back and forth that doesn't matter and doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't know, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what happens in this one.
Right.
So for me, it's a definite not recommend. This really sucks. and I really love the idea of Spider-Man having to battle and fight with the fact that he wants to reveal himself to this person and open up and have share both of his lives, but where he doesn't want to share either of his lives with her, really.
Right.
He likes her because she's hot.
Yeah.
And they make out and do it all the time. It's he doesn't like being a superhero with her, and he doesn't want to share his secret identity with her. What is the relationship here? You can't be upset at both. It's just weird that he's flopped now and he doesn't like the fact that she's a superhero with him. It doesn't make sense.
No. Because, it's all very, romantic. Anytime you see his feelings get a little more than lukewarm, it's when they're flinging themselves around the city on his spiderwebs and she's longingly looking at him. It's when he receives love from a beautiful woman, he's over the moon happy. Mm-hmm. But the moment that same person gets in his way, or tries to insert themselves in any other part of his life, mm-hmm. He just becomes this vacant shell. He shuts himself off, and it's what the heck? Mm-hmm. What makes you think that you are fit to date anybody if this is how you are? Because this is how he is with everybody. And I just don't understand why they keep wanting to write romance for him. Just make him just let him have adventures. Let me read him having adventures. Like, get this romantic bullshit out of the books. It doesn't work.
I just think they should write it better.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Because I want there to be romance. I want there to be some sort of love story and love interest in these books, but they're just bad. They don't know how to write them. And they're just inconsistent with it, too.
Yeah, it's like they don't know how to... It's like this group of white men don't know how to write women. Because every time... The only successful relationship right now that he has with a woman is MJ, and it's like they're like bros right now. At this point in time, they act like bros when they see each other at various social functions where they have mutual friends,
right?
Because that is their current relationship status. It's not a romantic one, but they're amicable. So, men who have had friendships are able to write that, but for some reason, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that they're incapable of writing. Yes, I am. I'm saying that they're incapable of writing these romantic plots without with women in mind as well. Because the stuff about just Peter Parker makes almost no sense. His rationale for doing what he does to women, even when he offers his own thought bubbles after thought bubbles of reasoning, is also just like really wrought with inconsistencies and things that are just freaking terrible thoughts.
Right. Yeah, it almost feels like a kid's vision or understanding of what this relationship is.
Yeah.
Like, it's not thought out, or it's about as deep as a puddle. Like,
well, here's the thing is, I just want to point out, and this is something Mike Dell and I notice. Sometimes we'll be reviewing a comic and we'll be like, man, the writing's not very good. Oh, how old's the writer? Oh, 21? Maybe that's why. So Bill Mantlo, when he wrote this comic, he was born in 51, so he was, 23-ish? Like, this guy, when he was, 20 years old, was when he was, a teenager. My math is wrong. He was 33. My math is terrible.
I don't think it matters I don't think it matters how old you are. If you're tasked to write something, then you should be capable of writing it.
Well, of course. I'm just saying that.
It's just,
all I'm saying is that, let's be clear. Jerry Conway took over Spider-Man from Stan Lee when he was 19, and he was good. But there's gotta be something, there's got to be indications in there where you read it and you go, okay, this guy's 19. I can't say what those were, but there had to be, right?
Yeah.
But you also have an editor.
I was gonna say that
has been with this character forever, who has obviously had more experience, or maybe not. I don't know. How do you even let that leave the table?
Right. Well, can we also point out the fact that, Josh, do you want to talk about what we talked about today earlier, about how there was a page missing from this comic?
Yeah. That's
and I didn't even notice.
Yeah, it jumps from page 17 to 19 in the version that we have. We're reading a digital version, and it doesn't matter. And it's kind of important too. But reading it, I skipped over it, and I'm like, wait a second, how did she get away? Why Spider-Man? Whatever. And I finished the comic, and then went back to see if I could understand, if I had missed something, and it turns out a whole page was missing, and it didn't matter. Nothing important happened in a whole entire page where I could still understand what's happening in this story, because at the end of the day, the whole comic book doesn't matter. Nothing has changed from the start of this comic to the end of this comic. And I don't think that anything has changed in the past few issues of this book. Nothing changes. It's always the exact same thing happening.
Right.
And I'm just done with it. I had more fun with Marvel Team Up this week than Spectacular.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I'm just so
That's bold.
like I'm just so like annoyed and done with it.
Yeah.
I don't understand how this like gets past an editor.
Well,
Right? Like the people in charge, like they're putting their stamp of approval on this and saying, "Yeah, that's fine. Let's push this out." Like even at least Marvel Team Up was its own story. Like it's its own unique idea where things are happening. Mm-hmm. It's all a jumbled up mess, but at least things are happening with characters.
Well, I will just say this. I don't know much about Danny Fingeroth, but he was an editor, but he did write some stories years later, and they were garbage.
Right.
And I will also point out that very soon there's going to be a new editor for Spider-Man who's going to radically change like the style of the whole lineup. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Were you going to say something, Jolie?
Oh, was I? No. Oh, God. The art was okay.
Yeah, I mean, the art's the same as usual. It's Al Milgrom.
Yeah.
It's very hit and miss, but the inks are solid, right? It's a little bit...
Yeah, I mean, you get some money where they're like that nice little splash of them hanging out amongst like smaller versions of themselves and their heads on page 11, digital 12. Like, that's cute. I like that. Like, it's nice. It's nice poster, and then you get the flashes of Peter Parker, like thinking about what it'd be like if they had children.
Right. That's funny.
But like they're not like humans. They're just they're smaller versions of them.
Yeah,
Like
great.
children dressed in their costumes, including the dog. Like, okay, I get it. I see.
Yeah.
Like, you get a lot of like fun stuff in the
Right.
art, but nothing that rocks the world.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, even the beginning, this like cold open of it starting off with like them trying to save Cobra from this mystery figure that's breaking into the prison to bust him out, and it turns out he's there to kill him, and they're still trying to protect him because they're in charge of this prisoner, even though he's a villain. And like, I at least there's something at the beginning, and then once we get back to Peter, it's the same old nothing.
Yup.
And
Yeah,
even sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Even the fact that like this Mr. Hyde and Cobra story is sprinkled in throughout, that's what it feels like. It feels like, oh yeah, we started this story at the beginning of the issue. We should probably put that throughout this Spider-Man and Black Cat drama just so we can end this properly. Like it doesn't like. I lose that Cobra and Mr. Hyde thing because all this drama is happening that means nothing. I don't know. It's just not great.
It's like, yeah, and it's like, do you know what? It would have just been better if, while they were swinging around, like she wakes up in the middle of the night and decides that it's time to go on the prowl together, because that's their favorite thing to do together. It would have been better if a fight occurred between them, even if it was just verbalized thoughts about him trying to reconcile why she can't deal with Peter Parker.
Right.
And then even if she was like, no, fine, if they came to some conclusion that led to her leaving that scene to go and find superpowers, and then just Spider-Man stumbles across Cobra and Hyde, that would have made this issue 100 times better.
Yeah.
But because we do a lot of bitching, but not a lot of solution finding. I feel like that would be my solution for this issue, I guess. I mean, yeah, it would make me feel better about the Felicia character, at least.
Yeah, I think it's such a bummer too because this story started out so strong, like issues and issues ago. Black Cat helped Spider-Man take down Dr. Octopus and the Owl. Like two main Spider-Man villains with their own like version of their own like mafia. Like Black Cat was in the middle of all that drama and was like integral in taking the two of them down. So the fact that she is now just nerfed because Spider-Man needs to doubt that she can be a superhero really blows. Like she should just start physically fighting Spider-Man.
Yeah.
To prove that she can like
that she can hold her own.
Yeah.
That would actually be amazing.
That would be
I like
so
that
fun.
as a solution. Better.
Like, yeah, make that the you don't even have to have a bad guy in it. Just have Spider-Man and Black Cat at the beginning of the issue, talking about how like having their own like thoughts and like separate like time to reflect about what their thoughts are. Spider-Man comes to finally say, "Listen, this isn't going to work because I know that you're going to get hurt." Black Cat shows up. And what she wants to do is start fighting Spider-Man and like pin him down or like take him out or something like that to prove that she can hold her own against Spider-Man and his villains. And she doesn't need to have these spider powers or these superhuman powers to hold her own because she's already proven that before in the stories. Like it's just like maybe it's just hindsight and it's easier to think of this because you're looking at it from the outside and seeing that it's not working, and like being a writer, it might just like you might just not see that it's not working because you think that they're like fun ideas,
right?
But it doesn't seem that hard. Like it just seems like it should be obvious that this isn't working, and it's extremely repetitive and nothing.
Yeah.
But.
I think, Bill Mantlo does leave soon, so I think instead of, asking him to improve, they kind of just quietly got rid of him. That's probably what happened, right?
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's a lot easier to say, "Oh, just fix it."
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to say, "No, I don't like it, fix it." I'm sure that there's a lot more going on,
right.
But I'm really not enjoying it personally.
No. And again, using myself as a barometer, like there's a reason that I didn't have like these issues as a kid. I bought a few of them from this era of Spectacular, and I didn't like them enough to keep them. But I did have, the Amazing Spider-Man. So, I mean, whatever. I guess that proves something, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to give a hard not recommend. I don't really have anything to say about this issue. Like it's just another wheel spinning issue by Mantlo and Milgrom. Again, it's not terrible. Like, I guess if you're reading this series, you can read this one just to kind of fill in the blanks, but it's not a great issue.
Nope.
I mean, I would recommend this issue if you're a big Mr. Hyde fan.
And I have to point out, Mr. Hyde was played by none other than what's his name? Twin Peaks. Kyle MacLachlan played Mr. Hyde in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
but
the TV show?
What's that? But they didn't reveal it was Mr. Hyde until like his last episode, I think, or something like that. They kept it a secret. Yeah.
See, I stopped watching that, and I'm kind of interested to go back and watch it again.
It's worth watching, I think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, their opinions are like, "Oh, it's like Gotham. It got way better later."
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It did, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
it's like they could smell the cancellation.
I wonder if that's on Disney Plus now. It should be because it's an ABC show, and ABC's owned by Disney. So, interesting.
That is a good question. Yeah.
Anyway,
I can't recommend this book at all.
Yeah.
Is that where we're going now?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Nope.
I haven't really looked ahead, but I'm really looking forward to a new direction, but I don't think it's coming anytime soon, unfortunately.
Right.
So we might have to hold out. But anyway.
Yeah.
I guess that wraps up this week's episode. We'll be back next week to review. Let me just double check this. Yeah, we're gonna wrap up the Hobgoblin 3-parter, and then unfortunately also read and review Marvel Team Up and Peter Parker. And Josh, you can take it from here.
So, where can you listen to the podcast, Josh?
I'm glad you asked. You can find the podcast pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts now. So that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. Are we allowed to talk about the new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. It's not available yet.
Yeah, Amazon Music or Amazon Podcasts, I guess. So if you're listening to this after it launches, we are already there. I don't think it's technically out yet, but keep an eye out. You can follow us at HCT Spidercast on Twitter to get updates on all that stuff. You can find us at the Here Comes the Spidercast pretty much anywhere else. So please keep in touch. We'd love to keep this comic conversation going.
That's right. And once again, we want to thank G.I. Jolie for joining us, and I'm sure you'll be back next week with another special guest. So until next Monday, this has been Here Comes the Spidercast.
All right. See you then.